So once I finished boot camp, I went off to A school for my job. And what A school is, for those that don't know, is the initial training that teaches you your job when you first come in the military. In the Air Force, it's called Tech School, and in the Army, it's called AIT. So for my job, which is utilities man, which is part of the CB community, is based out of Wichita Falls, Texas, on Sheppard Air Force Base. So we go to school with the Air Force and also some Army personnel, and we learn our initial training. So mine just so happened to be in Wichita Falls, which is a small town, which is like an hour outside of Dallas, Texas. So I literally had to catch 3 planes to get there, in a little small plane that landed at the airport that shares the airstrip with the Air Force that does all their test pilot flights. So I landed on the Air Force Base, and they had pretty nice accommodations, and it was somebody to pick me and the other guys I was with up, and they took us to these CB barracks, and they got us all checked in. So I'm looking around like, okay, this isn't too bad. So the first thing I noticed that was abnormal than boot campers, I seen a lot of females walking around in the Air Force called them the dorms, in the Navy we called them the barracks. But it was a lot of females that just so happened to keep passing by our dorms. And I found out real quick the reason that is because right next to the CB dorms was the Air Force, also for the Navy people, their medical and their dental school. So that being said, somebody was real strategic when they picked out where to put the CB dorms at. They made sure that we were right next to the females. So A school, the best way to explain it, it's like an extension of boot camp, but it's like college in uniform. And what I mean by that is it's an extension of boot camp because you still don't have all the rights, lights, and privileges for you to walk around and do what you're supposed to do, but they start giving you your freedom back in little small increments. And at the time, I think we had like 3 phases in which they give you your freedom back. And first phase is like, you can't be out of uniform. You have to stay on the base. Second phase is, I think it was they let you wear civilian clothes, but you couldn't leave off the base. And then third phase where you were able to wear civilian clothes and you were able to leave off the base. And it's like 2 or 3 weeks increment between each one of them that they make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do to be able to reach that third phase. Also, while you're there, you have to go through room inspections, and you have to march around everywhere you go, to go to your training in your school. So my first month or so of training was the air conditioning and heating portions of my job. And they taught me the basic fundamentals of ACNR, and I took my university EPA certification license. And then the next 2 months or so was about plumbing, and they taught me all the fundamentals of plumbing. Some of the things that was funny about being at the Air Force Base, I will say out of all the branches, the Air Force is very about their people. They go above and beyond to make sure they have all the accommodations. And what I mean by that is when you go to, which we call the galley in the Navy, they call it the chow hall. They had made to order food and breakfast and omelets. It was like being at Golden Corral there every day. I'm talking about almost anything you want for food. They had it there. And, we used to joke and go back and forth. They used to joke about us being in the Navy. We used to joke about how cush it was and how nice it was, other things that they had allotted to them on the Air Force Base. So during that time, man, I met a lot of good guys that I wound up being good friends with throughout my Navy career later on that I would run into in my CB battalions or in Gulfport, because Gulfport in the CBs is a very small community. So I met some lasting relationships. One of the funny things about A school is you also mix with what we call fleet returnees, people that's already been in the Navy, but then they wanted to change jobs. They came back to A school and they teach them their job, and then they could be part of that community. And that's why I met one of my good friends named Zatrine from, he was from Florida. So me and him clicked from the jump, man. And, he's deceased right now, but, he's somebody that I'll never forget. We used to have curfew and do bed checks while we were in A school. And he made a little man in his bed where he stuffed a bunch of sheets and put a basketball and in a nightcap over the basketball to make it look like somebody was in the bed laying down when they came and did bed checks, man. You know, to this day, I just sit around and laugh about some of the antics and the things that, you know, this guy did. And my roommate at the time, because everybody, when you're in A school, you have to have a roommate, and also you share a common space, like usually a bathroom with somebody that's on the other side. So it's like 4 people to a dorm, you know, 2 in each room, and all 4 of y'all share a bathroom area. So my roommate at the time was a guy from California, man, and this guy was hilarious in himself. You know, I have some funny stories about that. So the whole A school experience, man, it just was very entertaining, and you know, we couldn't really go nowhere, so they had this club on base called the BDU Club, and that's where we used to go and party, and that thing used to be lit. I'm talking about, you know, all the different squadrons from the Air Force used to come, and we used to party. And it was also crazy at that time. That was my first time being introduced to gangs, because in Florida, you know, we don't really have gangs like that, which they probably do now, but back then we didn't have any gangs. You know, we just represented our cities, our counties, and our neighborhoods. But I was exposed to a big gang problem. You know, all these people that was coming into the military, they were still waving a flag and repping wherever they were from, and you know, I got exposed to that stuff, and that's when I realized, like, man, some people take this gang stuff real serious. And I also had a crazy time at A school where a guy left me. We went out in town, and he left me in the hood. So, you know, I'm going to tell that story in another vlog. But all in all, I went to A school. It was about 3 months or so at the time. And then you graduate, and then they send you off to your first duty station.